Stuka Joe here. Today we'll be playing Brave Little Belgium. And this is a game designed by Ryan Heilman and Dave Shaw, which uses a chit pool mechanic. We will be playing one turn per episode, and this is the first episode. The game recreates Germany's invasion of Belgium during World War I. It uses a point-to-point map. And at the beginning of the game, the Germans have three armies, their first, second, and third armies in the frontier with Belgium. And they have to push westward. And victory is achieved by the Germans capturing the fortress of Liège, as well as the fortress of Namur. In addition, the Germans must advance westward and cross this dotted line that you see here. This is the victory line, and have one of their infantry units occupy any of the cities beyond the victory line. The game begins in the August 4 to 6 turn. The Germans must fulfill their victory conditions during the August 19 to 21 turn to win. That means they have to have destroyed both fortresses and at that time have an infantry unit in any city beyond the victory line. If the Germans achieve it during the August 19 to 21 turn, they win. If they achieve it during the August 22nd to 24th turn, the game is a draw. And if they achieve it during the August 25th to 27th turn or do not achieve it at all, they lose. So the game starts with the August 4 to 6 turn. In the second turn, August 7 to 9th, the French 5th Army under Landresac may be activated for the Allies. In the third turn, August 10 to 12, the French 4th Army and the German 4th Army also may be activated. And in the August 13th to 15th turn, the British Expeditionary Force under French may be activated. So at the beginning of the game, in the first turn, it will be just the Belgians defending against the three German armies on their border. The game uses a chit pool mechanism, and we have these activation markers for the armies in the game. At the beginning of the game, the only armies that can be activated are German armies 1 through 3 and the Belgians, represented here by King Albert. If three turn end markers are pulled from the cup, then any non-activated German army may activate at the risk of committing an atrocity, and each such army has to roll on the atrocities track. There's a 50% chance that an atrocity will occur. And in addition to turn end and activation markers, there's also event markers. The ones in gray confer advantages to the Germans, the ones in greens to the Allied side. Now, before we begin, let's take a look at the Guard Civic setup. There are 12 Guard Civic counters in this game, and they start the game face down on the map. We roll for each of the 12 units to determine where on the map they begin, and the result can be a Belgian city or none, which means that that unit does not enter the map. We have already rolled for all 12 units, and of the 12, we obtained 2 none results, and that's why we have these 2 units that will not enter the map here. Each German army has a cavalry unit, and in the first turn of the game, there's a special German cavalry phase where each cavalry unit of each army is activated for movement and combat. We see the Belgian forces. We have a fortress unit and 2 infantry units at Liège, and some Guard Civic markers nearby at Warem and Huy. There's a cavalry unit at Hasselt, and there's infantry mobile units at Diest, Tienen, and Louvain. Further to the south, we see the fortress of Namur, and there's around 5 Guard Civic markers in its surroundings. Finally, moving to the northwest, there's a Guard Civic unit at Nivelles, another one with the fortress at Antwerp, and the final Guard Civic unit at Ghent. On the map there are other Allied units, but these cannot be activated in the first turn. We see at Messières the French 4th Army, and the French 5th Army at Hirson, and the British Expeditionary Force at Le Cateau. The German 4th Army starts at Trier, and it is not active during the first 2 turns. So, we will begin now with the special German cavalry phase. In this game, cavalry units have a movement allowance of 4 movement factors and infantry units 2. This is a point-to-point map, and there's 2 types of movement lines. There's easy lines, like the line you see here from Bastogne to Neufchâteau, and crossing one of these costs 1 movement factor. And then there's difficult lines, like the line from Bastogne to La Roche-en-Ardenne. Crossing one of these lines costs 2 movement factors. So the Germans can move the cavalry units of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd armies up to 4 movement factors. And their direction of movement will pretty much dictate the flow of the strategy of the Germans at the beginning of the game. We see that most of the Belgian units are concentrated to the north and west of Malmedy. When we look at the southern part of Belgium here, there's not much stopping the Germans. There's no units in La Roche, no units in Marche. And further to the south, there's no units at all between Malmedy and Sedan here in France. So the German strategy will be to send its 1st army in the direction of Tongeren. The 2nd army will go through Verviers and occupy Liège, and the German 3rd Army will take a south-southwest direction and march either towards Sedan or towards Namur by way of La Roche, Marche, Namur. So the cavalry unit of the 1st Army will move 2 movement factors to Tongeren and 1 additional movement factor to enter Hasselt. And in this special German cavalry movement and combat phase, all movement is executed first. So now we move the German cavalry belonging to the 2nd Army to Aachen, from there to Tongeren, and its last movement factor spent to enter here, Tienen, where it will later engage in combat with the Belgian 6th Infantry Division. And last but not least is the cavalry unit from the German 3rd Army. It will move from Malmedy to La Roche-en-Ardenne and spend its last 2 movement factors to enter Marche. Now we proceed to resolve combat between the cavalry units of the 1st and 2nd German armies. First, we will resolve the battle at Hasselt, and we will resolve it on the map instead of in the battle board. Each unit rolls 1 die, and for a hit to occur has to roll the indicated result depicted on its counter or more. So the Germans have to roll a 5 or more, and the Belgians a 6. So we roll a die for each, and if you see a red die, it signifies a hit. If you see a white die, it's a miss. The Germans rolled a 1 and missed, and the Belgians rolled a 2 and they also missed. So there's equal number of losses, 0, so the attacker must retreat. And the German cavalry division must retreat back from where it came from. So it retreats into Tongeren. And now we proceed to the battle at Tienen, where the cavalry unit of the German Second Army is engaged against the Belgian 6th Infantry Division. So we roll 1 die for each, and both sides scored a hit. So each unit has to be reduced 1 step. And throughout the game we will use these markers to signify the number of hits accumulated. So we flip both units and notice that the German unit counter in its back is blank, meaning it is a 1-step unit. So that unit is effectively eliminated. The Belgian unit, being a 2-step unit, is flipped to its reduced side. That's the end of the special German cavalry phase. The net result, 1 German unit eliminated, 1 Belgian unit is reduced. Now we proceed to the Chit pool phase. We have all Chits that start the game in this randomizer cup, and we will proceed to pool them and place them on this area here on the map, and any turned end markers will be placed in these spaces here. So we pull the first Chit out, and it is the first turn end marker of this turn, in the first box for the turn end markers. Now we pull another Chit, and it's the German Zeppelin event. And this marker, when used on attack, in a regular attack, increases the die roll of attacking German units by 1. Now we pull the next Chit, and it is the Belgian activation marker. All Belgian units on the map are now activated. And this is a big advantage for the Allies, because now the Belgian units that start spread out in eastern and central Belgium can now move towards the fortresses, especially Liège, and those cities in the route of the German advance. The Belgians, having the advantage of moving before the German armies, want to achieve various objectives. They want to dislodge this German unit from Tongeren. They also want to place some units at Verviers in order to prevent the German Second Army in 1 turn from reaching Liège. So to avoid an advance by a German army, which happens when the German army eliminates all Belgian units in attack and still has a 5-to-1 unit ratio, both units here in Liège, both Belgian units, will move on to Verviers. And the Belgian 6th Division here at Tienen will move into Liège. The Belgians want to place more units in Liège. They have various options. They can move 1 or 2 units from Namur into Liège. However, that would weaken the defenses of that fortress from attack by the German Third Army. But notice that only the cavalry is at march. The German Third Army, its infantry, is way behind at Malmedy and has to traverse 2 difficult lines to reach March. So therefore, the Belgians will send their better unit, the 4th Division, from Namur through Huy into Liège. Now we turn our attention to Tongeren. The 4th Belgian Infantry Division at Diest moves through Hasselt into Tongeren. That will create a combat situation, and the Belgian Cavalry Division at Hasselt joins the battle. The Belgians have 2 mobile units left to move, and these are the 2 infantry units here at Louvain. They cannot reach Namur in one move. They will both move through Tienen into Warem in order to be able to react to German movements near Tongeren as well as further south in Namur. That's all Belgian movement. Now we resolve the battle at Tongeren. So the Belgians just need to score one hit to eliminate the German cavalry. So we roll for both sides, and no hits were scored on either side. And the Belgians have to retreat from the battle to the space where they entered. So the Germans still hold Tongeren. And we continue, and we pull the next Chit, and out comes the second turn end marker. So no German armies have been activated, so we pull the next Chit, and it's the big Bertha German event. This event Chit causes an automatic hit on a fortress during siege combat, and also whenever the Belgians engage in a bombardment of German besieging forces, the Germans can fire back if they play this event. So we pull the next Chit, and it's the third turn end marker, and none of the German armies have been activated. So now the Germans have to decide how many of their armies they want to activate in this turn. If they want to activate all three, they have to roll for each, and on a 4 to 6, an atrocity will be committed. Now, the chance for all three armies committing atrocities is about 12.5%. We see the situation here where the German first and second armies face stiff resistance in a westerly path, but taking a southwest route is looking attractive, at least for the German Third Army and perhaps even the Second Army. So the Germans will roll for all three armies, and we will roll one at a time, just to keep this thing interesting. So we roll 1d6 for the first army, and the result is a 2, no atrocity. Now we roll for the second army, and the result is a 5, so here we have the first atrocity of the game. And now we roll for the German Third Army, and the roll is a 4, another atrocity. So all three armies will activate, and there is 2 atrocities in the first turn of the game. And we start with the German First Army at Aachen. To make good its gain at Tongeren, all infantry units at Aachen will move to Tongeren, and that ends the First Army's activation. Now we will proceed with the German Third Army. And the Third Army will move through this difficult line here to La Roche and Ardennes. Having no more movement points to spend, that's the end of its activation, and it has an option of moving that cavalry unit also to La Roche and Ardennes, but giving up this space. The cavalry unit also has another option. Could be moving into Dinant to find out what's the strength of those Guard Civic units there, and that's what it will do. So it moves in Dinant, and now we flip the Guard Civic markers. One is a blank, a dummy, so we remove that counter. The other is a very strong Guard Civic unit, and cavalry units, when moving into spaces containing Guard Civic counters, upon them being revealed, have the option of avoiding combat and retreating back to the space where they came from. So the cavalry unit from the Third Army moves back to march. The Third Army ends its activation. And now we proceed to the activation of the German Second Army. It moves from Eupen into Verviers. And now we have a combat situation, and we'll resolve it in the battle board. Here we see the units laid out. The Belgians have 3 steps of units, so 3 hits will wipe out the Belgian force. And now the Germans will play the Zeppelins event. And this gives the German player a +1 die roll modifier that increases the chances of hits. So now we roll for all German units. And that's going to wipe out the Belgians. But the Belgians fire back first. All combat in this game is considered simultaneous. And the Belgians score 1 hit. So now we remove the Belgian units that are eliminated, and one of the German units is flipped to its reduced side. So the Germans will be able to fall upon Liège with their first or second armies in the next turn. And this is the end of the first turn. Now we advance the turn marker to the August 7 to 9th space, and the French 5th Army under Landresac will be available for activation in turn 2, so we place it in the randomizer cup. The French 5th Army starts here at Hirson, and it is 1 force march away from entering Namur. Question is, will it arrive there before the German 3rd Army? The German 1st Army has a clear route to Tienen westward, and the German 2nd Army is about to fall on the fortress of Liège. If the German armies move first, the Allies can be in trouble. So, stick around for the second turn of Brave Little Belgium. This is Stuka Joe signing off for now. Thanks for watching.